Hi everyone, you are Reddit expose there, enjoy watching.
I met Lina because of a kettle. Someone in the Hyde Park by Nothing group posted a porch pickup. Electric kettle, still works, just loud. Kainigan Duval, text before you come. I texted, biked over, and found it sitting on a milk crate with a post-it that said, enjoy in sharp block letters. As I was calling the cord, the front door opened. A woman in cut-offs and a ball cap leaned against the frame. If it dies in a week, she said, bring it back and I'll give you my old saucepan. It's indestructible. It sounds like a chainsaw, I said, lifting the kettle. That's its love language, she said, and smiled. Lina. We learned the shape of each other's days by accident. She was a case manager at a nonprofit in East Austin. Rent relief, utility shut-off notices, time on hold with people who used hold music like a moat. I was a product designer at a transportation startup down in the Seahome district, arguing about buttons and copy and whether retry sounded colder than try again. We were both after people, after work, after crisis, after someone else's deadline. We started seeing each other between errands, tacos at Tyson's, a dip at Barton Springs when the line was short, a movie at the Alamo, or everyone shushed in unison. We sat on the library roof at Apple and made up stories about the paddle boarders in Lady Bird Lake. The kettle screamed on my counter, and Lina called it from my couch. Okay, mouthy, we hear you. It quieted when it boiled, like a person who only wants to be acknowledged. 9 months in, a one-bedroom opened up off North Loop, with a window unit and a patch of shade where herbs might pretend to live. We pooled IKEA tools, bought a thrifted table with one leg shorter than the others, and found a recipe balance: her beans, my rice, her hot sauce, my caution. We taped an ERCOT text to the fridge, set AC to 78, if you can, and decided we could. In August, we learned that can and want are different muscles. The first cracks showed up as calendar holds. Her client walks in meant a crisis didn't wait. My final review meant I was presenting to people I hadn't met who controlled the sprint. We slipped into professional tones at home. Can we circle back to this? Let's pick this up tomorrow. You can talk like that in a kitchen for a while, but not forever. One Wednesday, during a heat dome, I found the AC at 72 and a note. Had a day. We'll split the bill. L. My throat did a small stupid thing. I wrote back, it's fine. Just tell me. She came home after 9, dropped her tote, and sat on the tile like the floor could pull the heat out of her. I talked to 6 landlords and to grandmothers today, she said. I turned my phone off in the bathroom for minutes and felt like a thief. I handed her a glass of water and didn't say the thing about thermostats that only mattered to me. In October, she got an email with a subject line in all caps, the kind you don't ignore. A fellowship in El Paso, 1 year, housing stipend, border work shed and inching towards since grad school. I applied thinking it was a long shot, she said, holding her phone like a trophy and a bomb. It's the thing. We tried to map the thing onto us. There were flights and weekend plans and halfway ideas. On a Sunday at Zilker, we lay on a blanket, watching kites angle over us like stubborn birds. I can visit, I said, doing the math out loud. You can, but you'll end up sitting in a room while I write case notes, she said. You deserve scenes with you in them. We didn't break up at the park. We went home, opened a spreadsheet, and made 2 columns. She took the Dutch oven. I kept the mouthy kettle. We argued only about the framed map of Austin a friend had drawn. She folded, gently. You're staying. You should have it, she said. We put the spare keys in a bowl and felt the bowl get heavier for no physical reason. After she left, I rearranged furniture until the floor plan surrendered. I put a hook by the door for my keys because I kept setting them on the table like a person who lived with someone who would clear the table. I booked therapy, capital area counseling, sliding scale, afternoons that didn't ask for a lie. In the first session, I said I'm fine twice and the counselor said, what does that buy you? I didn't know. Austin kept being Austin. ERCOT texts buzzed, bats fanned out under the Congress Bridge, HEB started putting hat chilies in everything. Our neighborhood group turned itself into a dispatch center. Box fans for elders, rides to the cooling centers at the Carver branch, where the lobby had become chairs, outlets, and small relief. I made a sign in English and Spanish: water, outlets, shade, no questions, and taped it up with blue painter's tape that looked like permission. At work, I rewrote our error messages with a kindness that would annoy me 2 years ago. Session expired became looks like we waited too long. Let's start fresh. Support tickets dropped a notch. My manager wrote, whatever you did, Do more in the corner of a dock like it was a secret recipe. Lina sent photos, when she remembered. A chain-link fence with bougainvillea strangling it. A paper plate under a sky so big it made the plate look like a joke. Once she texted at 2 a.m. my time, "We need a printer that works and 6 more of me." I wrote back at 8. "I can't do the 6. I can buy the printer." She replied with a heart and already solved. I learned that not being needed is not an indictment. In January, we ran into each other at Wheatsville. I was pointing at cheddar like a person who pretends to know cheeses. She had a basket and wine-burned cheeks. We did the whole script. "Hi. How's work? How are you sleeping? You look steadier," she said, catching the word. "You too," I said. We hugged the kind of hug that knows which bones not to press and moved on. There was no what if in the checkout line, just honey and receipts. Spring was water. Rains came right when the forecast said they wouldn't. The apartment windows fogged like they were trying to share secrets. I set a rule I could keep: no slack after 8. On Fridays, I gave myself 30 minutes of actual silence, no podcasts pretending to be silence, no inbox whispering, just the sound of the fan and the kettle's brief tantrum. I started a dumb but effective habit: a laminated card by the door that I'd check with my hand before leaving: wallet, keys, water, mask, call mom Sunday. It made me feel like a person who had a plan. I also slid a little quiet hour sign into our team Slack with the company's blessing. People sent me DMs that said thank you. I slept between jokes about being 80. By summer wed made the mutual aid table in our building official, a wire rack by the mailboxes with take, leave, label in thick marker, a jar of paper clips, a roll of blue tape, and a list of things that mysteriously solve everything: screws, felt pads, zip ties. A neighbor added a pump for bike tires with a Sharpie note: "Please bring back. I trust you." The first week nobody stole anything. The second week, nobody did either, which felt like a small miracle I didn't need religion for. I met someone, not on an app, at the Austin Tool Library, of all places, where I'd gone to borrow a miter so I definitely didn't need. Her name is Priya. She helps run Saturday Fix-It clinics, lamps, toasters, fans. We stood over a busted fan together, flipping it open like a biology lad, and she said, "Half of this job is cleaning dust." I laughed, the kind of laugh that sits low in your stomach. We got coffee after, then dumplings, then used no plans beyond next Sunday as a promise instead of a warning. The kettle finally died in August. It let out one last theatrical groan and cut to black. I sent Lina a picture of it with a solemn "it's time." She replied from a sunburnt fen somewhere, "Pour one out boiled." I bought a new kettle that barely whispers and felt briefly disloyal, like I'd traded a friend who talked too much for one with boundaries. Maybe that was the point. On the first cool evening in months, I did a small loop of the building, tightened a loose screw on the rack, restocked the tape, wiped the handprints off the water outlets, shade sign that had migrated to our lobby. A kid practiced scootering over the threshold it fixed with a rubber strip. His dad nodded at me the way men nod when they don't want to say more and ruin it. Upstairs, I washed to bowls, set to spoons, and taped a new note inside the cabinet where we keep them. Small stuff counts. I don't romanticize any of this. ERCOT still texts. The bus still decides it's a rumor. People still leave their laundry in the machines like it's a trust exercise and we're all failing. But my life fits inside a casserole dish now. Enough for us. A little extra for the table downstairs. A recipe card paperclip to the handle in case someone wants to make it again. Sometimes I think about the map on my wall, that hand-drawn Austin with the streets that never meet and the rivers that pretend to be lakes. I touch the corner where North Loop is scrawled, and that feels like a prayer I can keep. I put water on. The new kettle coughs politely. I stand in the doorway and say a thing that doesn't need an audience. "I'm here." Tomorrow, I'll print a fresh sign, change a filter, write a softer error message, and maybe remember basil at the store. If Lina texts a photo of a sky so big it tilts, I'll heart it and go back to my pan. If Priya says, "Saturday, the library, 8 busted fans," I'll show up with donuts and a screwdriver. It's not a movie. It's enough. The week after I named the folder on my desktop "Small Fixes," I realized that my life was starting to look like the list inside it. Saturday morning, I wheeled a wobbling cart out to the lobby. A plastic bin of felt pads, a roll of painter's tape, extra screws, 2 screwdrivers, a level, and a label maker that only printed in all caps. I taped a sheet over the folding table. "Neighbor help hour." Squeaks, slams, crooked things. People filter in the way they do when they're not sure it's allowed to need help. A couple from Tbillion with a cabinet door that drifted open on its own. A grad student clutching a lamp with the wrong base. Mr. Lewis from 5D with a grocery cart and 3 dead smoke detector batteries. We found a hinge screw longer than the original, swapped in the right bolt, replaced the batteries. Each fix took fewer minutes than the story of how long it had been annoying someone. I was packing up when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. It was my ex. The same steady voice, a different echo under it. Hey, weird ass. A package for me landed at your address. Could I swing by later? Sure, I said. I'll leave it with the manager, or I can be home at 6. 6 is fine. I made soup, white beans, and a tired head of Kayland wrote 6 on the sticky note by the buzzer as if I could remind a door. When she came up the stairs, she paused under the new motion light I'd lobbied for in our tenants' chat. It turned on without stuttering. We both looked up and smiled like proud parents. We did not linger in the hallway. In the apartment, her eyes took a slow lap. Softer bulbs, a hook by the door, the fern that kept being replaced, and finally decided to live. It's different, she said. Less echo, I offered. She laughed. Also, less pile of shoes. We stayed standing. She told me she was moving again, further east for a project that actually paid. I told her work had steadied, that had found a therapist who didn't nod at everything like it was a museum exhibit. She asked about the folder on the table, small fixes, and I told her we'd stopped waiting for the super to be our entire government. I'm glad, she said, for the light, and for you. We hugged the way you hug someone who still knows your posture. Then she left with her package, and my apartment took its shape back around me. The door closer inhaled once and shut with a soft click. I stood there, hand on the plate, noticing there wasn't a thunk inside me chasing the one outside. On Monday, my manager pinged me to polish copy on error states. It used to be I'd spin clever until the deadline squeezed the oxygen out of the words. Now I wrote the way Mr. Lewis talks, specific, short, with a verb someone can use. Instead of an error occurred, I put, we lost connection. Try again when you have signal. Instead of invalid credentials, I wrote, that email and password don't match. Reset your password or try another email. We shipped the changes with no Slack thread debate. Support said the tickets were quieter. It felt like changing the bulb to the right base. That week the building's group text lit up about the front door slamming again. The closer had drifted in the cold. I left my laptop, grabbed a hex key, and texted, if anyone's home to hold the door for 10 minutes, meet me downstairs. 3 people came. We adjusted the tension, added a drop of oil, and set it so the last inch was more whisper than sea lion. Someone clapped. Someone else brought down a box of floor felt pads and asked and left them on the table with a note, for next time. There was a little crisis at work too. We need this deck by end of day in the channel meant to be quiet after 7. For the first time, I didn't take the bait. I wrote, I can give you a draft by tomorrow 10 a.m. If you need tonight, Lupin X. No thunder. The world didn't end. The draft was fine at 10:04. On Friday, I went to our neighborhood tool library to return an orbital sander I'd borrowed to smooth the splintering rail by our back steps. The volunteer at the desk, blue beanie, name tag that said Sana, asked what I'd been working on. I told her. She said, you should teach a 15-minute thing at our fix at night. People are weirdly scared of hex keys. I said yes before my shy reflex could make me say no. I wrote say yes to small rooms in my notes app and stuck a star on it. The weather slid toward real winter. Our heat did its bang-ping symphony and then remembered to be warm. I printed a bilingual sheet. Too cold, too hot. Curious who to call and taped it in the lobby. The morning after I put it up, an older woman I'd only ever seen at the mailboxes stopped me and tapped the paper. Crossius, she said. Then, working hard for the next words, easier now. I went upstairs and wrote easier now is the goal on another sticky note no one would see but me. In the middle of all that, a new neighbor moved into 3C, a social worker named Anna with a bike she carried on one shoulder, like a newspaper. We traded the usuals, Wi-Fi name, trash days, the trick where the dryer likes exact quarters, not the ones from the bodega with extra ridges. A week later she knocked and asked if she could borrow my drill, or, she added, if you're the kind of person who prefers to drill their own walls, I can hand you anchors and hold the level. I told her I was the kind of person who had once drilled a hole into a hidden conduit and learned my lesson. We hung to shelves and a bike hook and did not talk about anything that tried to be bigger than what we were doing. When we finished, She handed me my drill with both hands, like a ceremony. Power went out the next storm. You don't think about electricity until the hallway becomes a mouth with no teeth. We rolled out our mutual aid table. It had earned the name, set up a charging strip, put a pot of water on a camp stove by the front door so anyone could make tea. A teenager from 1D made a sign, phones 15-minute each on neon paper. People took turns. Someone brought candles and left them with a note. Take one. Leave one. It stopped feeling like waiting and started feeling like a room. The lights came back. The next morning, I found a folded index card on the table in my lobby handwriting. Thanks for not being a hero alone, it said. No signature. I put it in the folder. A few days later, my ex sent a link to a video from a panel shed moderated just a minute, work stuff, the stage lights to sharp. I watched, liked, didn't reply. It wasn't cold, it was correct. I closed my laptop and went downstairs to meet Sana for the fix-it night. We set out a bucket of hex keys, a jar of paper clips for the instruction handouts so people could rearrange, and a sign that said, ask first in marker. For people brought nosy fans, a guy loved a drawer that never sat straight, a woman held a lamp whose chain had snapped off inside. We showed. Then they did. The best sound of the night was a drawer sliding the way it should. On Sunday, I finally brought a thin stack of my practical warmth zines to the little free library on the corner. I tucked them between leftover pamphlets about composting and a half-warped children's book. I stood there too long, then laughed at myself and went home. The next week one was gone, or soggy, and I decided either possibility was fine. I won't make it pretty. Sometimes I still wake up at 3 a.m. and feel the old nervous electricity looking for a circuit. When I do, I make tea. I tell myself out loud what the next 3 small things are: turn the plant quarter turn, email the landlord the exact dates the heat sputtered, check the door closer 1 notch tighter as the air gets colder. If it still hums too loud, I text a friend, walk, and we go around the block once, in hats. Last night Aina knocked again. I made too much soup, she said. The city's unofficial love language. We ate at my table under the warm bulb. The T7 okay I used to make fun of and now evangelize, and talked about nothing that needed solving. After, we washed the 2 bowls, and I put another sticky note on the inside of the cabinet where only I'd see it. Continue is an action. The door clicked softly behind her. The radiator breathed. Somewhere, a neighbor's laugh rose, then landed. I sat for a minute and let the ordinary be loud enough. Then I turned off the overhead, left the little hallway light on for whoever came home next, and said the words that fit better in my mouth each time I use them. I'm here. That's enough. Tomorrow, tighten a hinge, print a flyer, answer an email with 1 sentence instead of 5. Small fixes. A home made out of them. 2 weeks later, the manager taped a notice by the mailboxes. House meeting. Nose, storm prep, that table by the elevator. We dragged folding chairs into the lobby. Mr. Lewis brought a thermos. Sana from the tool library showed up by accident, dropping off a flyer and somehow staying. I held up the bin with hex keys and felt pads. It's not a shrine, I said. It's a place to put the little problems where hands can reach them. Aina added, and it keeps us out of each other's apartments. The woman from for F-caps-lock in the group text cleared her throat and said, then call it what it is. Mutual aid table. We voted with nods. The manager sighed the way people sigh when the easy answer becomes obvious. Fine, she said. I'll laminate the label. We also agreed on a winter protocol. Salt in November. Filters changed on a schedule. Arrow to the fan. Please, lamp on a motion sensor by the stairs. Warm room at the library during cold snaps. I printed a 1-page version in English and Spanish. The manager stapled it to the corkboard. I slipped paper clips next to it for the people who prefer not to staple their lives shut. On my way back upstairs, I found a postcard slid under my door. My ex's handwriting, plain as a street sign. So your practical warmth at the cafe. Good words. Take care. No return address. I propped it on the shelf and felt nothing jagged, just the neatness of a ribbon you don't pull. Work settled into its useful hum. Human error messages reduced support chatter. The quiet after 7 channel stayed quiet. New hires asked questions without apologizing first. At the end of our weekly, I started doing a 1-minute thank you, a person, a link, a thing that saved time. It made the room different. You could hear it. Fix-It night at the Tool Library went from 12 people to 30. We kept the same sign, ask first, and added another. Don't be a hero alone. A father and daughter rebuilt a wobbly stool with 2 washers and a level. then left with their arms around each other like they'd won a small prize. Afterward, Sana wrote bring your own lamp with the wrong bulb base on the next month's flyer. I sent her the template and a photo of the right base. Tower flickered again during the first real storm. The motion light caught our faces as we taped to phones. 15-minute sheet to the table. Aina brewed tea on the camp stove and made people take a cup with the same tone she uses at work when somebody tries to skip a form. A teenager from 1D drew arrows to the outlets with a thick marker. By the time the transformer groaned back to life, half the building had learned each other's names without asking for them. Once, around midnight, I woke up to that old static. The radiator was breathing, not banging. Nothing was wrong, exactly. I made tea. I wrote 3 lines. Email HPD the exact dates. Rotate the fern. Nudge the door closer a quarter turn tighter cold air makes it lazy. I did one of them and went back to bed. The static dimmed like a room where someone remembered to turn off the overhead. On a clear Saturday, we installed a second bike hook in Aina's place and a shelf above her sink. She handed me a spare key on a ridiculous oversized paperclip. Temporary, she said, laughing, for borrowing sugar and drills. I looped it on my ring and didn't give a speech. We set a shared house calendar filters, salt, fix it night, her late shifts, my Friday half-hour of silence. It looked boring in a way I trust. Spring edged in. The sign they'd written for the crosswalk outside the school we see you. Cross quietly, went up on a slim post. I walked there after work and stood back by the tree pretending to tie my shoe while a mother and 2 kids read it out loud and did exactly that. A crossing guard tipped his hat at me like he knew. Oh, I hadn't told him. That tiny private pride arrived, ordinary and clean. That night the building chat pinged, front door slamming again. I grabbed the hex key. Aina appeared in the hallway with a headlamp like we were going caving. Mr. Lewis held the door. 2 turns, a drop of oil, a test. The last tinge softened into a whisper. We waited for nothing else to happen. That's how you know it worked. Back upstairs, Aina set 2 bowls on my table. Too much soup, she said. City love language. We ate under the 2-7 OK bulb. The firm looked like it had finally chosen life. After we washed up, I slid the postcard from my ex into the folder with the index card that says, thanks for not being a hero alone. Not trophies. Receipts. Before bed, I did a lap. Mutual aid table stalked motion like catching the landing filter humming low, the laminated winter sheet still flat against the cork, the new label, straight, no bubbles, under the plastic mutual aid table. I wrote one more sticky note and hid it inside the cabinet with the tea. It works. In the doorway, I pushed the plate with my palm and listened for the thing I'd been naming at this whole time. The door closer took a breath and closed without a bang. Somewhere below, someone laughed, and somewhere above, someone walked past the motion light and it found them without being asked. I turned off the overhead, left the hallway light on for whoever was still out, and said the only line I keep because it fits and because it's true. I'm here. That's enough. Tomorrow, change a filter, print 5 flyers, answer with 1 sentence, tighten a hinge. Small fixes, a home made out of them.